So what do? I mean, I can show you the data, but what do you do about it? I hear people saying, well, we have to tell a better story. We have to tell people that farmers are good people. We have to make them like us. I actually think that's very important to do, but it's never enough. You're in a war here. You can't win a war with just a Navy or just an Air Force. You can't win a football game with just a defense. Last time I watched football, the team who had the ball on offense most of the time scored the most points. Occasionally that's not correct, but not everybody gets safeties. So that's lesson number 9. You gotta have an offense and a defense. And what are you gonna do to survive? And here's the thing. It's not enough just to tell the truth about who you are, which is a natural thing to wanna do. If somebody calls me a horrible person, I wanna say, no, I'm not. But you also have to tell the truth about who they are. Do it often. Make it funny. Make it sticky in people's minds. Now you've just gotten into what I do for a living. I mean, my job at this nonprofit Center for Consumer Freedom is to create message campaigns that tell the truth about these groups because they're not telling the truth about themselves. Lesson 10, the last lesson of the presentation, has 2 parts. And lesson 10A is that there's no such thing as conventional wisdom, public opinion that's fixed in stone. It's all flexible. You're never totally dead here. You can always change people's minds. You don't believe me? It wasn't too long ago Al Gore had a Nobel Prize, remember? Global warming was going to kill us all. You know, now we've got ClimateGate. They're dumping data. They're firing professors in Great Britain. During the blizzard, I think they called it the snowpocalypse in Washington, D.C. Recently, they actually had a global warming hearing that was called off because of a snowstorm that dropped 4 feet of snow in Virginia. Public opinion is shifting. And public opinion shifts on other things too. It wasn't too long ago that the President of the United States was running partially on a platform of reforming immigration, amnesty for illegal aliens. That's gone now. Only 30 or 40% of Americans think that's worth doing. It wasn't too long ago when most Americans said, let's try Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in New York City. Let's bring him back to the scene of the crime and embarrass him. And now people are flooding the phones at Eric Holder's office, the Attorney General, saying, don't do this. These things shift. It's possible to change them. President Obama's approval rating has, woo. I mean, you've seen what's happened. But here's the thing. These things don't happen by themselves, and I'll get to that in a minute. In 2003, when my organization first really took a hard look at PETA, their positives were in the 70s. 73% of Americans heard the phrase, people for the ethical treatment of animals, and said, I'm for them. Okay? In 2010, the number's 49%. Doesn't happen by itself. So Rule 10B is, yes, conventional wisdom is flexible, but there is no public opinion tooth fairy. You have to do this stuff. You have to make it happen. The reason that people are complaining to Eric Holder about Khalid Sheikh Mohammed not wanting a trial for him in New York is because people are organizing to tell him that. The reason people are, I think, the reason people are changing their minds about immigration reform is because somebody is driving that message. Left to itself, who knows where it goes? It could go up, it goes down. But if you're not driving the message about who the Humane Society of the U.S. is, they will. So someone's always driving public opinion. It's never just left to its own devices. That's part of what the First Amendment does. People always talk about what the First Amendment is, but that's what it does. It creates an environment where we're always messaging to everybody about something. And so you have a choice. You're either in this war or you're not. If you want to sit it out, you're creating a situation where the Humane Society of the U.S. is going to be the only ones talking about what HSUS is. Here's an example of driving that public debate. Here's how some of the reason PETA dropped from the 70s to the 40s. We can't take all the credit for this, but I'll tell you, the Center for Consumer Freedom in those years was the only national group running ads, driving public debate, putting up websites to be critical of PETA. We ran this ad in the New Yorker and in the New York Times Sunday magazine. Not exactly a red meat crowd, okay? Burning the AIDS ribbon. Oh, I got a lot of hate mail that week. People said, how can you could burn the AIDS ribbon? I said, no, look at the ad. This is what PETA's president says, that the lab rats are more important than curing AIDS. If animal research resulted in a cure for AIDS, we would still oppose it. They're burning the AIDS ribbon. We're just telling you about it. Powerful stuff. PETAKillsAnimals.com. That's an actual photograph, by the way, of Times Square, New York, a couple of summers ago. Amid all the glitz and glitter and flashing lights of Times Square, we put up a black and white billboard, stuck out like a sore thumb. It was great. 7 million visitors have seen this website. we did a feature-length segment on Anderson Cooper. The San Francisco Chronicle was critical of PETA for killing 97% of the adoptable dogs, cats, and puppies and kittens that come in, and then having the gall to complain to everybody else about eating a steak, or yelling at the President of the United States for swatting a fly. Humongous hypocrisy. We did the research. We ran the FOIA requests by the state of Virginia government to get the records to prove the case, and we communicated it to the public. Again, there's no tooth fairy here. Somebody's got to do it. We ran this ad in the New York Times. Who killed more animals, Michael Vick or PETA? Yeah. Makes you say, oh my goodness, that's right. Now, I'm not saying that PETA beat the animals senseless or made them fight each other, but look, if you're PETA, those two things shouldn't matter. They're for the no compromise, total animal liberation. They want every animal to have a chance at life, or so their press materials say. I'm not saying they were as vicious as Michael Vick. I'm just saying they killed hundreds of times more animals. Now, thousands of times. That number is half again as big today.
A Channel 2 investigation is looking into millions of dollars in donations given to the Humane Society of the United States. A national consumer organization says HSUS solicits pet lovers for money, but little to none of that money ever goes to help local shelters. Channel 2's Amanda Rossiter here now.
These dogs survive the wretched conditions of a puppy mill.
It's very deceptive.
We are the voice for those who don't have one of their own.
This is the HSUS, the Humane Society of the United States, reaching out for donations from animal lovers.
For just $19 a month.
They do their marketing very well, that's for sure.
But you might be surprised to learn there's virtually no connection with your local Humane Society. Critics say the national organization takes advantage of people who think they're giving to local shelters. Where does all the money go?
It goes to lobbying. It goes to political contributions. It goes to pay huge staff salaries and benefits.
So we went to a local HSUS meeting to find out, and the 2-hour discussion was about activist plans and lobbying.
A lot of those shelters are overflowing because of the economic conditions.
They say they sure could use some help.
Amanda, thank you.
Now, I'll share with you a little news. That didn't happen by itself. Somebody's got to go out there and talk to reporters and say, hey, you really should investigate this. We'll help you do it. We'll give you the information. We'll tell you who to talk to. These things don't happen by themselves.
A Channel 2
Oops, sorry about that. Anyway, this is what the media thinks of the Humane Society of the U.S. right now. The yellow bars represent media stories where they're referred to as a kindly animal welfare organization, and the pink bars represent news stories where they're referred to as an animal rights group or a vegan organization, or referred to in the same breath as PETA. Now, if you want to tell the truth about who they are, you should want these bars flipped upside down. You should want the pink bar bigger than the yellow bar, because that reflects reality. They're not an animal welfare organization, they're an animal rights group. Now let me show you a parallel example. This is a group called the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They're the ones who want all the milk taken out of the schools. They believe that dairy causes cancer. Now this guy, Neil Barnard, he's a medical doctor, he's a psychiatrist, he hasn't practiced medicine in over a decade, but he's an MD, so he's got some built-in credibility. And this is what he actually told an FDA panel a couple of years ago. Okay, I'm not making this up, this is his voice.
Did any of you ever overdose on cheese a little bit and you found yourself constipated the next day? Almost the very same effect that you had if you're in the hospital and you got codeine after a surgical procedure, because you have a narcotic going down your digestive tract that came from the cheese. The process of turning milk into cheese is the process of concentrating casein and fat and eliminating lactose, whey protein, and water. It's the purest form of the drug. It's dairy crack.
It's dairy crack. Milk, he says cheese is morphine on a cracker. He says it's dairy crack. It's a narcotic. It's a dangerous drug that should be taken away from children. Now, again, this guy's got a medical degree, so he's got built-in credibility. He's a longtime confidant, close friend, wink nudge, of Ingrid Newkirk, the president of PETA, and he's out there saying this stuff. He's got 9 books in print.